Hello and welcome to the Home Assistant Podcast. This is episode 2023.3. I'm Rohan, and as usual, I'm joined by Phil. Hey, Phil.
Rohan, how's it going?
Good. And as usual, this episode is sponsored by Home Assistant Cloud by Nabukasa. Easily access your local Home Assistant instance remotely for a small monthly fee that supports Home Assistant and the ESP Home projects. Configuration is done by the user interface, so there's no fiddling with router settings, SSL certificates, or any YAML. All right, let's talk 2023.3, not 2022.3, 2023.3. This is, I don't know why this is so difficult for me, but...
Getting used to the new year?
Still? Yeah, I've actually just woken up, so it's I went to sleep, it was 2022, woken up, it's
there you go.
Almost March. No, so...
There is actually something we did miss in January, which is, and I... just noticed it the other day in my car. It's the release of Android Auto support. Now I know, Rohan, you are an iOS user, so this probably don't give anything about this, but I was really impressed. Yep. I have an Android Auto head unit in my car, and I was just scrolling through the new Android Auto update, trying to fix up some settings here and there, and I saw Home Assistant was an app in there. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. And color me like impressed. This thing is awesome. So all the entities are exposed. It's easy to navigate. Now I have the ability when I pull up in the driveway, I can now unlock the front door from Home Assistant before I get out of the car.
Is it a different layout? Is it like is there any?
It's not necessarily a layout. So Android Auto apps are pretty restrictive in terms of like the UI design. It's got to be like big buttons because you've got to
because you're driving.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like the entities they have like standard icons. It looks like Home Assistant icons, I'm guessing, and just like laid in a grid buttons. It would be nice to be able to. And maybe there is a setting, I haven't looked at it yet, restrict which entities are available. Because right now everything is in there, right? So I can go in, I think I went into the covers because I got my garage door as a cover. I don't, that's the only cover I really care about in the car. I don't want to, then I've got all my blinds in there as well, right? So scrolling through the blinds just to find the garage cover was a bit annoying, but maybe there's a setting somewhere that I can restrict that on. Otherwise, I was, really impressed. If you do have an Android device, the Android app just needs to be updated on your phone, and then if you've got an Android Auto head unit, you should be able to just access the app from within.
I love that where it just kind of shows up, right? You got a new feature, and all you do is update, and you're just like, whoa, now I have this cool thing.
Yeah, exactly.
It's magical. Speaking of new features, so let's talk about some new features in Home Assistant itself. So 2023.3, I'm still struggling to say that for some reason. So the first and foremost, one of the cool things they did is restarting Home Assistant, right? So it sounds kind of silly. It's like when you restart Home Assistant, there's a few options. There's a couple of different places you can go to. What they kind of did is they kind of almost took after Windows XP, right? Where you go to the shutdown menu, and there's a couple of options there. Do you want to restart? Do you want to shut down? Whatever. And they kind of took after that. And essentially what you have now is you got a new little window, and you've got the, hey, do I want to do a quick reload? Do I want to restart Home Assistant? Or do I want to reboot the whole system, which especially if you're using like a Yellow or a Raspberry Pi, like a supervised install, or do I want to shut down that system, right? So there's a couple of options there. And the nice thing is some of these options were in different places. And now no matter what you click on, you get that pop up, right? So it's a nice unification of all of those different pieces there too. And then even there's a cool little feature within there as well. So if you remember all of those reload YAML buttons, now there's a quick reload button in there, which actually just goes in and essentially cycles through all of those buttons for you, right? So you don't have to go in one by one and reload automation, reload scripts, reload, whatever, right? YAML entities and like all of that crap.
This like feature is like such a good, like, it's not major, right? Like there's no new functionality here. It's all existing functionality. The only new functionality, of course, is the ability to do the entire reloading of YAML instead of having to press every individual button. But I do like also that the restart Home Assistant banner changes depending on, like, for example, I'm just here running the Docker container, so I don't need a full system reboot. I just need to restart the Docker container.
You can't do a full system reboot. Yeah,
exactly right. So yeah, like really impressed, and yeah, like getting rid of like a quick, easy way to do all those different YAML auto reloading. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's super cool. So it's nice.
I do also, another thing that's come in is the Assist, or the Home Assistant that was brought in the last release, has had some updates. So now you can ask the Assistant what is the current state of devices. So is Rohan's lamp on, for example? Are all the windows closed? How many doors are open? Currently, the English and Dutch intents are covered. So, yeah, if you are a non-English speaker and you can help out with the other languages that we need to do this for, it's all open source. Get into the GitHub repos and make some contributions. It would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, and we talked about that in the last episode too, in the last release episode. It's not like you need to be an expert coder, or you need to do any of that stuff. You basically need to know a language. So it's easy way to contribute back to the open source project, right? So couple of new things too is cleaner entity information dialogs. So when you look at an entity, there's before along the top, you would see a bunch of different options, right? A bunch of different tabs to go to the device information. So normally when you start off, you'd see like, whatever the power graph or whatever information related to that entity, like whatever it's information it's giving you. But then they moved all of that into a one of those like little triple dot menus. So you click on there. And then you get a couple of options underneath. So device info and related devices. So basically they've just taken those different tabs and moved them to a different spot. It's one extra click. I get it, but it just makes things cleaner for stuff that you're typically not going to use, right? So, and if you do want it, it's there. And there's a little settings pane there too, where you can go in and do that.
I must say, like, this is a pretty controversial change, I think. I don't think this more entity, like this dialogue, has been changed in forever, right? Like ever since even before, like when we're still like on 0 something, I just remember this whole thing. I do really appreciate the cleanup of the related devices. That thing I used all the time. It was just an absolute pain in the neck to find. I need to find the device. I don't care about the automation. I don't care about what scripts are in it. I just want the device. So having that in there is much cleaner. I like the colors. The control of lights. It's much more user friendly. I do think though. It would be nice, and obviously this is first iteration, but I would love to see, and I can't wait to see what they're going to do with things like covers, blinds, all the different types of device classes that we have and how they can be controlled. Because I think there's, fans, climate, all that. Like I think this is going to be a great step forward. And I think this actually came from the State of the Union last year that was sort of demonstrating how this is going to work. So I think that's going to be a game changer.
Yeah, no, totally. So with the new dialogues as well, one thing you got to keep in mind is when you go down to the slider all the way down to 0. So there's a couple of action things there that are a little different than what you might be used to. So a lot of times, for example, I think in Apple, if you go all the way down, like if you slide your slider all the way down, it actually takes it down to off, right? Whereas here, it takes it down to like just before
1%,
that, right?
yeah.
And then you have to click on the power button to actually turn it off. So, yeah,
I like that. I prefer that actually. So
I don't mind that either. I mean, either way, I think I'm used to the slide it all the way down and it's off kind of thing. But I don't mind it either way.
all right. Python 3.11 support is landing as of this release. It's not currently available for Home Assistant OS or the containers. So there are a few little quirks that are still being worked out. But if you are running Home Assistant with a pip install by yourself on your own hardware, you can use 3.11. There are some breaking changes that will flag a bit later on for you too.
Yeah. This is a cool one because I don't really use it, but I still think it's pretty neat, is Real-Link. So the Real-Link integration now lets you update the firmware of your camera, control zoom and control autofocus. The zoom and autofocus part, fine, cool. I actually really like the update firmware part because that's something where I don't have to go out of my way into the Real-Link piece itself and then go update the firmware and stuff like that. Because
does it actually do it from a Home Assistant, or is it just the telling you that an update is available?
I don't know. I read this as it actually does it for you. And again, correct us if we're wrong. Put it in the comments on YouTube if you're watching this. But yeah, it's I see a ton of value with something like that, right? Because especially with IoT devices, again, IoT devices are typically entry point for attackers for putting in like malicious firmware and getting into your network, yada yada yada, right? So the best way to keep against is again, obviously isolating your devices, things like that. But beyond that is also keeping your firmware up to date, right? A lot of times those contain security patches and so on. So I actually really, really like the fact that if we can actually keep it updated through there, or even if nothing, even if it does tell you just, hey, go update your camera.
Yeah,
it's a great first step at least, right? So.
Because I know, like in my Z-Wave network, it does offer like a whole bunch of entities now, right? Like this device has a firmware update. It doesn't do the firmware; it just says yes or no. There's an update available. Same with like hacks integrations and stuff like that. So,
yeah, I think if we can get to the point where we can manage those, and it becomes very difficult because obviously every provider does their
that's it, right?
updates and stuff differently. So it's very difficult. Hopefully, with again Zigbee, Z-Wave, Matter, all of that, hopefully that introduces one less hurdle. But I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
The OpenAPI conversation integration now has options to customize it to your liking. So I think
the OpenAI,
the OpenAI, the conversation. So yeah, you can customize. I'm guessing you can change the way it interacts with you. Maybe pretend to be a pirate or something. I guess there's an interesting use case. Hopefully that'll then translate into a voice assistant later. That'd be nice. I wonder if you could get it to like pretend to be like a starship, like from the Enterprise or something, right? Like a Star Trek, computer or something, right? And have it talk to you in that sort of robotic voice. Not the voice, but like the tone. Obviously, it's going to be text.
Yeah.
Or even like Game of
start
Thrones
journaling with it. Stardate 2020.
Yeah. That's a good idea. You're exactly right.
Yeah. No. Exactly. All right. So in state conditions, now you can use templates in the for parameter, right? So let's say you have a entity, for example, or a condition, for example, where you can say, hey, like somebody is not home for X amount and Y amount, right? Like whatever, this many minutes and this many hours, whatever. When you bring that into a template, you never used to be able to have that for. Now you can do that.
So this is really interesting. So I have a couple of use cases that I've done this, like, let's say one example is our bedroom air conditioner, right? Summer at the moment. So if it's after a certain amount of time, we're generally going to bed. So the air conditioner turns on immediately. But if it's before then, I don't want the air conditioner to turn on immediately. I want it to wait, for the room to be occupied for a few minutes. So previously, what I'd have to do is, have a couple of different conditions, make sure that if it's before this time and the room has been occupied for this amount of time, do this. So now I can potentially just do that via a template in the one condition block. If the time is less than 9 p.m., wait for 15 minutes. Otherwise, if it's after 9 p.m., only wait 10 seconds or something for the room to be occupied. So pretty handy. All right, some new integrations that I had landing in this episode. Looks like I've got the weird one to try and pronounce. What is that? Dormakaba dKey. So connect and control your Dormakaba dKey Bluetooth low energy locks.
Dormakaba? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But Bluetooth smart lock now available in Home Assistant. Love it.
Yeah, there you go. easyEnergy. So it retrieves the dynamic energy and gas prices from the Dutch utility company, easyEnergy. So I think it does that hourly. So that's cool.
That's cool. I still have my energy being done by my old energy provider API. I think I still have, technically I have an API access from them still. So I just use their pricing to get the live updates. So
it sounds like you have a somewhat in touch energy provider. So it's I have like virtually no hope of that. So it's dude, I just started getting electronic water billing, right? Like by email. They used to, but it's weird. I still have to call it in. So it's a system, and I guess I can't talk too much smack. So I actually used to work for that group at some point in the municipality, but in the municipality that I live in. But it's you there's this like, I don't know, like a 1-800 number or something like that. You dial it, you call them, and it's like, okay, enter your like, I don't know, like 12 or 14 or something digit account number. And you're just sitting there like beep, boop, beep, beep, boop, boop, beep, beep, beep for like a minute. And then it's like, okay, enter your whatever 6-digit or 8-digit, whatever water meter reading. You type it in, and that somehow translates it back into one of those systems. And
seems
then
pretty
eventually
simple.
Like it's simple, but it's really stupid. Like, I don't know, like this isn't something that in 2023, this isn't something that I need to do. This is something that can get figured out automatically, right? Like, or do something like give me an app and I can just pop in the numbers and call it a day. Like, I'm signed in. I don't need to. Yeah. So what they do is every other bill. So once every 6 months, I'm billed like every quarter. For my water. But so every other bill, they do an estimate, they actually come in and like come to your door and check, like our outside, the meter, they go in and check. And so I'm just like, all right, I'll just get an estimate one, and then they'll make me whole in the next, because I honestly just couldn't be bothered to do it. It's just such a waste of my time, right?
Is there a potential to automate that with like the Twilio integration and Home Assistant and getting like the OCR reader reading your meter?
So there is, and I've actually thought of doing that. And again, I've got everything for it. I've got a camera that I have with like a magnetic base and stuff like that. Honestly, it's not worth my effort. Like they're every other bill, they're going to give me an actual reading. So I'm like, okay, well, if you're not going to put the effort into modernizing your crap, I'm not going to bother doing it either.
No point in doing it at all, right?
No, exactly. It's I don't know how other regions or other municipalities are like how, what do you do, Phil? Like how does your water get billed?
I believe it is all smart metering now, I think. Otherwise, for the gas, I know for sure that someone comes around to each house and looks at the reader. Like, but we don't have to phone it in or anything. And if they can't get access to the property, maybe the gate was shut and they can't find the meter, then they will, same thing. They'll estimate it, and until the next one, then you'll get I guarantee you there is no loophole to like get cheap gas or energy out of this. Like they will eventually get the right amount.
And I mean, eventually it works out, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you start at 0, they estimate 10, tomorrow you're 20. Cool.
I don't even see why you would have to bother with the phone call. Like that seems like they could just cut the whole phone number.
there's actually 0 point. And like it's nice because they do have services for like, if you have any mobility issues or if you're elderly, you can't like, it's in an awkward spot, you can't necessarily bend down, whatever. They do have like where they'll come every billing cycle and check it. I'm like, but I'm not going to use that just because that takes away from somebody else's service, right? That where they actually need. I don't need it. I'm just lazy. And I'm just strongly against what they want me to do.
But I guess, for maybe some people, if they want an accurate bill, maybe they don't want just the estimate.
Exactly.
For whatever reason.
But I gotta say, they're, at least from what I see, their estimates are actually fairly accurate, right? Like it's like it'll be off by a few bucks, and it's not like they're putting me out like $100 every other reading, because at that point I might care.
Yeah.
Right. But that's not the case at all. So it's I don't know. I guess it's good. It's one of those things. But yeah.
All right. TP-Link Omada SDN controller is now, which is I guess they've got a whole variety of different devices. So network switches, access points, internet gateways. They're now available as an integration in Home Assistant, so you can control those.
Yeah. We don't have this on the list, but I'm going to talk about it anyways because I'm pretty excited. In terms of the BLE integrations, one of the ones that's coming out is the Switchbot Tilt integration. So that is the blind controller, like the Venetian blind controller, right? Like the slats style. I just ordered a couple of these. Again, I don't know if they're good or bad. Somebody I know, and he actually listens to the podcast. So he was texting me as a friend of mine. It's just been texting me, being like, "Oh, I got these." Is like, I wonder when it's coming in. And on the creators call, Frank talked about it, and I was like, "Oh man, guess what? It's coming in, whatever." And I'm pretty excited for it, just because again, I bought this thing with the intent that eventually, hopefully, it'll come in. I think it comes in like next week on like I don't know, like my shipping estimate is like next week,
that's
midweek
awesome.
or Friday or something like that. So I'm like, okay, cool, like that'll be neat. So it should be. Hopefully, this is in time, and it just picks up in Home Assistant and does it. But it's cool. It's like a small little unit. It is expensive for what it is. I think it's grossly expensive for what it is. But
anything blind related.
Like I don't get it. Like I know there's a lot of people that DIY it and stuff, but I know if I DIY it, it's going to be ugly horrible, and I'm going to get yelled at. So it's and in all honesty, I would agree with my wife in, you're doing all of this stuff and you're putting effort into making the house look nice, and then this is what you did, right? So it takes away from it. So I'm excited. I've got blinds right on. You can't see it; it's off camera, but it's just to the left of me. Yeah, and especially when I'm on calls or on. Again, we're putting this on YouTube, right? So I want my lighting to be somewhat nice. It's which is very difficult with a bright facing window right next to me, or sometimes it's dark, sometimes it's whatever. You can still kind of see it on my side here. I've been trying to adjust for it, but I'm very excited for that integration. And again, because it's BLE based, assumably it just turn it on, and bam, it just shows up as a new integration. So
I have a couple of the Switch bots, right? Like they just push the
the
button.
original button push thing.
And so long before Home Assistant even had the integration with like Bluetooth that they've got now, I was running, I think there was someone had created either a Python or a Node Docker container that could be run on like a Raspberry Pi to act as a hub. And it was essentially then push that. I think I then pushed it into MQTT. And so then I could, through MQTT or a REST API, I could then tell the Switchbot to just push the button. So I would assume now with them being native and not needing to go through, any random Docker containers or Raspberry Pi somewhere, you should just see it as like a switch in Home Assistant.
Yeah. And I mean, kudos to whoever built that, right? Because again, it was, you're doing it before it was cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And no, but I genuinely do mean that, right? It's you solve the problem, but I mean, unfortunately at the time, the problem was being solved by needing like 3 other tools to solve it. Right. So
I wonder if you'll be able to get like real-time updates with the Switchbot. Will it be able to tell you the blinds are 50% open, 100% open in real time?
Like after the fact? Yeah, I don't know, because I know there is an override to it, right? Like I haven't played with these. I don't have it yet, but I've been told that you can actually manually like turn the thing. All this is it's literally a little like cup that goes around, or like a cuff, I guess is a better way to say, that goes around the wand that you would turn to open and close your blinds.
Yep.
And it's just a motor attached to that to actuate that. So I don't know what would happen if I like disengage or whatever and manually turn it. I would assume that it's not going to work, but I don't know if they do like a reset where they would like close it and then bring it back to that position or something like that, right? Where it's something.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But yeah, it's cool. I'm super excited for it. It's actually something that I was telling my wife about, and she's like, "Oh my God, just spend the money, get it." And because the front of our house, where my blinds are, where my office is the front of my house, and people walking by and stuff can usually look in, and we've got a washroom right in the next room and stuff like that, right? So it's like it's sometimes awkward for people walking by, and it's like, and if the window is still open at night, and I'll always like leave some of the, like, again, as part of my automation, I've got a couple of Govee lights behind me, which turn on, and I've got another Govee LED strip just to the left of me, and so people can see in the room. And again, I've got my camera, my lights, and stuff like that. My laptop's here.
Yeah, especially like at night. Once the blind's left open, it's just like straight into the house. Like
it's not even like, I'm not worried about people being like let's go break in, whatever. It's just a privacy thing, right? And I always get yelled at for leaving the blinds open past like when it's dark, because a lot of times if I'm on a call, it changes the lighting unevenly, or it's just unprofessional if I'm like, okay, like hold on 1 second, and I get up and do that. So it solves a problem for my wife more so than me, and she's behind it, so, which is fantastic. Super excited for that.
Well, can't wait. I have 2 spare Switchbot button pushes I have not been able to find a use case for. I guess this is the problem of going first party smart everything, right? Like, most people would say, put it on a kettle or something. Well, I got a Wi-Fi kettle, right? So, I don't need a Switchbot for that. So if anyone's got any ideas on what I can use to get those Switchbot to push, YouTube comments or feedback at askpodcast.io. I'd like to hear some creative users for a little Switchbot button pusher that are out there. Yeah.
A fun one that I've heard is, if we remember, a very long time ago, we had XBMC Nut, I think Pete, and he basically built his coffee machine automation for the Breville Barista Express or whatever it's called. which required a lot of, you have to open it up, put a relay behind the power button, whatever. So it's like you're virtually pushing the button, right? I think he used the Shelly one. And the reason I know this is because I have one of those coffee machines, and I'm like, this is actually really cool. And somebody was like, why don't you just stick a Switchbot in front of it, and it just pushes the button on the outside, right? So that's a good use for it, I think. But it's also one of those
coffee maker, but I don't drink coffee, so I'm less inclined to automate that.
Good thing you spent the money on that one. But yeah. All right, let's talk some breaking changes after our slight tangent there. On the MQTT side, so the behavior for receiving values on sensors that expect numeric values have been changed. So now on a none value or a value that's rendered to none will set a sensor to an unknown state. Right, so that means if we have something that comes up as none, it's just automatically going to be unknown. So make sure you know that. I know a lot of people that listen to us have MQTT as running and build automations based on that. So understand that. And then for empty value sensors, so if it just sends out a blank, essentially those will be ignored, and it won't affect the state of the sensor. So it's just literally no characters in between anything. It's just going to be ignored.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I think MQT is very popular. So to watch out for that one. All right, profiler. So the profiler.memory service is not available when using Python 3.11. So this is due to an incompatibility with the needed dependency for the service. It will return if and when the used Guppy 3 package becomes available with Python 3.11 compatibility. So if you have upgraded to Python 3.11 and you do rely on the profiler.memory service, you can't use it. I'm guessing that's also going to be the same when the Home Assistant OS and container upgrade as well. So yeah, hopefully before those containers upgrade, this service, this underlying package gets an upgrade. But yeah, that may be just something that we have to forgo for the short term.
Yeah. ZWave.js bump. If you're update ZWave.js.
Yeah, make sure you do that.
That was actually a fun fact. That was actually one that Phil caught, wasn't in the notes.
There you go.
That's Phil's contribution fully back to the community.
Yep.
You're welcome, people.
First.
It's no, that's all
right. No, so one thing I did want to mention though is a big shout out to Daniel who emailed in feedback at hasspodcast.io. So Rohan, we were talking about how you got your smart vacuum cleaner. And I was like, yep, that's cool. So we have a local, like a Best Buy store. It's called JB Hi-Fi down here. And they have like the smart home section. They've also every place now has robot vacuum cleaners, right? It's the rage. And I think you said it was an Eco or a Dbot or something.
Yeah. So Dbot X1 Omni.
Yeah. And I was looking at all these like robot vacuum cleaners in JB, and I just I was overwhelmed. Like, which one is compatible with Home Assistant? And then you go down the rabbit hole. My general go-to is go to the Home Assistant docs, look out, what's available, and then you're like, Xiaomi's got a vacuum cleaner. It's a whole kerfuffle to work out, what cloud dependent, what's not. So anyway, Daniel, he is a champ. He's emailed in and he said, I was just listening to episode 2023.1 on the way to work this morning. And Rohan mentioned he got the new robot vacuum. Yeah. I just wanted to bring Valetudo. Sorry, I'm going to say that again. Valetudo. I think that's pretty.
Valetudo?
Yeah.
I think it's Valetudo. I don't know. Yeah.
To your attention. So we'll leave a link in the show notes on hasspodcast.io. It's valetudo.cloud. So it's an open source cloud free software for a bunch of robot vacuum cleaners. So Daniel says, I picked up my vacuum based on the supported list, and I have mine flashed with Valetudo with fully local control. So essentially you'll be replacing the local operating system on the vacuum cleaner. So then you can, same as if you would flash Tasmoda on one of those devices to get local, like ESP Home or whatever running on it. Unfortunately, the one Rohan bought doesn't appear on the list, but I just wanted to give a heads up for anyone looking at getting a new robot vacuum. It's definitely worth looking at. So that is a resource I'll be using if I ever need to get a robot vacuum. I think that's a great little shout out for everyone too.
Yeah, I've actually known about Valetudo for a while. So a couple of folks I know used Valetudo today, and I actually did look before I bought this one, but it's just like the features I wanted. None of the supported robots I believe had it. So one thing to know as well is make sure you look at the instructions on how to flash it, because some of it is a little bit advanced, right? Where you have to open up the
it's the worst,
the bot and flash it, right? Again, they make it hard on purpose.
Yeah.
I know some Roborock ones are supported. So like the Roborock V1 or the Xiaomi ones, pre-2022, pre-March 2020. And the Roborock S5 can be done over the air, but some of the other ones you need to actually open it up and kind of flash it that way. If you're okay doing that, then fantastic, right? I know I don't remember the exact model numbers, but one of the ones that a friend of mine has is the Dream robot vacuum, DREAME, and that is supported. And I think that one also you need to open it up, but you don't need to like rip it apart. You just need to, there's just some pins, like header pins that you can connect to, I believe, and then just update it that way. So it is definitely very, very cool software, and shout out to whoever's built it. I just find it hilarious that the URL for this is valetudo.cloud, but the tagline is literally free your vacuum from the cloud. So it's actually the exact opposite of cloud. So I appreciate the irony in your URL there.
Is there any reason why you, like, knowing this before you got your vacuum, that you didn't use one of these vacuum cleaners? Was it just aesthetics, like you preferred the vacuum cleaner that you got over aesthetics, or it was just you couldn't be bothered to do this?
No, it's actually because I wanted mopping, and I wanted vacuuming, and I wanted the self clean, whatever. Like I said, this was like a Christmas present to myself, where it was definitely a splurge purchase. I in no way like could I have lived perfectly fine without this? Absolutely, right? Like it was just a really, like, I don't know, it was one of those like treat yourself kind of purchases. But it's I actually really like it. So it was between this and the Roborock S7, I want to say, and then and again, like these guys throw in like Pro, Max, Ultra, like whatever, right? It's
you can never work out what that even means.
Yeah, it's so stupid. Like this one is the Ecovacs Dbot X1 Omni. Like you couldn't just come up with a simpler name, like good, better, best.
V1, V2, right?
Yeah. So, but this one, it mops, it vacuums, and then it actually goes back, empties itself, cleans the mop. And that one and the Roborock S7 both, I believe, have that same kind of feature. It's just this was like $800 cheaper, at least in Canada. I think in the US they're equivalently priced, but this one was way cheaper for me to get by a pretty decent margin. So I got this one.
Have you had any issues with the cloud?
No, I did have to, just at one point I just had to like reboot it, like turn it off and on again. When I first got it, I don't know what weirdness. Yeah, but it was just no. Like it's like actually on the robot itself. The robot itself can I believe that's where the Wi-Fi connection comes from, is actually the actual vacuum cleaner, not the base. I might be wrong there, but that's what I believe happens. So, but there's also a little switch on there, but it's not like I have to like rip it open or anything like that. It's just I just lift off the magnetic cover and just flip the little switch, right? So it wasn't a hard fix. But yeah, That's I don't know. I've had no issues thus far, but again, it is a fear for such a pricey product that tomorrow they could just shut down, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And it does work without it. It loses all of its intelligent features, right? Like
so like
proper
internal
mapping and all of that stuff, because it does have like a little LiDAR thing and it maps the rooms. And
concerning that it needs the internet for that. Like,
I know.
locally, right?
Yeah, it's. I don't know. I don't love that. I've seen a few comparisons on YouTube and stuff like that a lot of people have done, but I know what I did. I know why I did it. I wish it wasn't. What's it called? I wish it wasn't as dependent on the cloud. I couldn't find pretty much exactly these features without a cloud dependency, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
There was, there's a few people that have done videos on this on YouTube and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know. I still like it. It goes off every day, and I still get excited. So
you just like seeing it going around doing its thing.
That's right. No, the Hookup actually did a really good video on the X1 Omni versus the S7 Max V or whatever, and then the Roomba iRobot combo of I think the J7 and the M6 or J7 Plus. Again, it's stupid names, right? Like it's I don't know why I was like, oh, okay, these like the X1 and the S7 have like really good like dog poop detection. I don't own a dog, so but it was definitely a selling feature. In case I ever do get one, but he does put them to the test. The X1 was definitely the worst when it came to the cloud dependency. But yeah, check out that video too. It was he actually did a pretty good in-depth review of those. So
yeah, nice. Cool. All right. Well, it was only 20 days, I guess, because February is a short month. So it was only like 20 active development days or something like that since the last release. So yeah, pretty light release, this one. But yeah, UI tweaks are coming, so it's good. I think the biggest change is going to be that restart menu. Very big fan of that. Rohan, anything else for today?
I think that's it. I went off on a couple of tangents, so that's pretty good. It's other than that, I don't have a whole lot now.
Cool. All right. Speak to you in the next one. Cheers.
All right. Cheers.